cool. We gotta uninstall this fingerprint device before someone uses it. The view from Occupy Live. Oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
The people, some of the mods can just play with it as we work with stuff too. Yeah, you're on.
Oh, good. Okay,
But
so we're back, but I can't see the...
Can you check on this computer and read it from here?
Yeah, well, and I'm not going to be taking Q&As until after anyway, so I don't think it's... At what point did it stop working? Do we know?
It's working now.
Yeah.
It's working now. Okay, so we're going to start again. Because once again, even more technical difficulties. Seems to be never ending this evening. We are slightly in the dark today, but we are still here. I'm still here. My name is Anna, and this is The View from Occupy Live, which typically airs at 9 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. Monday you get to be joined by all of us lovely ladies, myself, Sharon, Mari, and Claudia. And tonight is my show, Tuesday. You can see me here every Tuesday. We started The View from Occupy to take advantage of live stream as a way of reaching women and men in the community to foster empowerment in women and help women find their voice, to find their strength, and to create positive change in their own communities as well as the world. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the women that are here at Occupy that are making this such a wonderful movement. There aren't as many of us as there were whenever it started, which I think is due to the fact that it is a bit of a rough-in-it situation, and myself and Jared, who is going to be my male perspective, which we also bring onto the show, and I'm bringing it on a little bit earlier than we typically would, will be talking with me about how we've been viewing women's participation in the camp and what we've been seeing in some of the great women who have been there. So, hi Jared, welcome to The View from Occupy.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Awesome.
So yeah, do you want to give me a little bit of insight into how you feel about the women's participation in Occupy?
For the most part, what I've been seeing is that the women have stood out in a very profound way in this movement. They have a strength that speaks to a lot of the things that make this movement very powerful. They definitely have a presence, and even though you might have less numbers, what you're finding is that the actual strength and their participation and how they get involved in everything it's profound. It's very, very profound, and when you get to know the women in the movement and you get to learn where they come from and their stories, you learn a lot, especially as a guy. Like, you learn a lot about, you hear some shocking stuff, but at the same time you realize that the women are warriors. They are so strong and so powerful that it's just awesome. It's hard to describe. Like, you would have to get close to these girls to really understand what it is, and it's inspiring.
Well, and I think that's one of the things, although we have seen a decline in the women that are here at camp due to their own commitments, family commitments, school commitments, or the fact too that it is a very different terrain as a woman to be living in a camp. Like, we don't have running water. There's a lot of things as far as roughing it. It is a much more male-dominated environment at the moment. But the women that are here have been extremely involved in the committees, in participation. Like, if you think of women like Taylor, I can't think of a single committee that Taylor is not on. And she's been extremely active in activism and social justice and creating change in these things for quite a period of time. Actually, I first heard about her during the G20. And she brought a lot of awareness as well into the conditions that were in the jails, holding places for G20 protesters. And she's been extremely active on volunteer facilitation, marshalling, which is our peacekeeping and mediation group on the camp to keep everyone safe. She's done medic. She's kind of everywhere at the same time. And I think it's really inspiring seeing women like that just really put their all into everything.
Should we tell them about how we kind of came to this? Because it was actually a conversation between Anna and I that we were having, and it was actually a conversation where Anna said to me that she found it very difficult, or the women are finding it very difficult for the women to be feminine in the camp, and that really set something off in my mind where it was just kind of rallying all the women and saying, does this need to happen? Yes, obviously yes. And that kind of communication to men will set things off in their mind, and this is the things that men have to learn about a lot more when it comes to women, because they are, you know, this other half of the protest.
Yin
The
and
yin
yang.
and the yang. Right,
Can't have
exactly.
harmony without all of us together united. Yeah, actually, it was. I originally started up a blog, which was kind of one of the inspiration points behind, which was the conversation we were having. A very, very typical thing. A bunch of girls ended up being gathered around the latrines that we have on site here. And we're just talking about things that we normally would in the outside world. And, you know, we've been, of course, talking about all the typical things of Occupy, whether it was politics or the economy or social issues such as healthcare, education, daycare, things of that nature. And we were just talking about growth stuff, and we were like, wow, you know, like it's kind of tough sometimes. We don't have running water. Obviously, makeup, we don't have mirrors here. Makeup, it just, maybe it's some cover up occasionally to get rid of the bags under your eyes, but you kind of have to guesstimate with that. And we were commenting on how we didn't feel as feminine as we normally do, and I thought it was something that really needed to be brought out, because we want to still feel like women whenever we're creating these changes. And that's whenever me and Jared had this conversation as I was creating this blog, which unfortunately I have not. I've been too busy. I myself have been really involved on a lot of committees as well, whether it's through doing volunteer facilitation and helping facilitate the early stages of doing small breakout groups, to, of course, being our media team, doing everything from social media to photojournalism, filming, editing, blogging, emergency, helping out like other occupations who are facing eviction and spreading the news about that. As well as occasionally doing some unofficial marshalling and mediating, which is always interesting. It's an experience, which is one thing too that I think has been really great to see, is that there are women marshals, which I think many of us would think of as mostly a man's job, but women are actually extremely talented at peacekeeping, and I find that women are able to diffuse the situation in a very different way, using conversation, creating that calm environment, something where it doesn't escalate to a conflict. Yes, multitasking. Girls are very good at that. Jared just wrote that down as a reminder for me. You can do multitasking. It's a good thing. Yeah, and we have women here who are pulling crazy shifts as well, and I think one of the challenges as well for a lot of women at Occupy is juggling other responsibilities, which obviously the men are doing as well. For some of the women, it can be difficult too. Lots of people here are juggling having children, but there's been women here that are juggling that, still juggling their careers, juggling their families and their friendships as well. Outside of the camp, and maintaining that while still being able to maintain that strong presence here, which is incredible. And I've certainly met so many strong outspoken women here. It's been amazing. So yeah, Jared's coming back as well here.
Yeah, sorry.
Did you catch that?
The volume outside had to be lowered.
Yes, we had a speaker's mic starting up, which although we do appreciate and adore a speaker's mic, in fact, I am quite. I love it. I'm not gonna lie. Whenever we're live streaming, it kind of sucks. But did you catch the end part of what I was saying? Did you have anything to comment on that?
I'm sorry, you'd have to say it again.
Oh, well, I was saying about marshalling with women and how women are so good at doing all the mediating, and that it's great to see women actually participating on something with marshalling, which is kind of like a peacekeeping, security, keeping the camp safe, which I find that a lot of women here have really been excelling at.
I find that a lot of women are very good negotiators. They're like expert negotiators, and they really bring a different dimension to a lot of the problems. Like, that might arise. If there's like a disagreement, sometimes there's always a different perspective and a different approach. And like even negotiating stuff, like when it comes to working out a solution, you know, I find that women have a lot of strengths in that regard. Unique to men, but at the same time very effective.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be that balance of both, so that it works. So maybe we will start taking some questions.
We should
I
just
know
take
we do
questions,
have
yeah.
more programming coming up, and we've been kind of started a little late, so it might be a bit of a quick show with all of our technical difficulties and stuff. So if you have any questions, shoot them over on the live chat, and we will answer them for you. We'd like to keep everything kind of centered around the theme of Women at Occupy, as well as if people want to ask about how to get involved. Basically here we have the info tent, which is kind of like the hub of information from the occupation, which is actually two of our wonderful women on staff who I have seen work 24-hour days there, who can tell you how to volunteer, different committees to get involved with. We have sanitation, we have the information tent, we have food kitchen, which we have some really amazing cooks in the kitchen, very good food, and great food donations as well. We have a library, we have an arts committee, we now have a theater committee, we have the medical yurt, we have yurts. We also have a women's safe space, which would be really interested in having more women coming and participating in and creating open dialogue for women in a constructive manner. As a woman, I don't encourage other women to deny the fact that men have a very important role in our society as well. I think that's the one thing I've really enjoyed about this camp is finding so many men that are very appreciative, like Jared as well, who appreciate and respect women and have been extremely accepting of having us in these roles. I think this is the first time in my life in being in these kinds of positions of work and such where I've actually been treated with a level of respect that I have been here, which is wonderful. It's actually quite odd going back into the real world where you do notice you are treated a little differently, you're looked at a little differently, whereas here you're looked at because, oh, she does this and this and this or in camp, and she's got this to say. It would be wonderful if we could just translate that to the whole world. We're very good with that.
Can you do your password, please?
I don't know what it is. Jared. Yes. Rowanberg, that actually is a really excellent question. I think there has been through a lot of things, and I will answer this even though it's not specifically to Occupy, because I think it's a very important, very valid question about whenever guys speak, there aren't a bunch of people hitting on them. But whenever a woman speaks, that's free game. I find that in our society, unfortunately, women have become very over-sexualized, and I do hold part of the accountability of that to the beauty industry, which unfortunately women as consumers have continued to feed and allow to grow. And men as well have grown up with those kinds of medias, and also the education that they receive as they're growing up. I find that when a woman opens her mouth, that is true, and I have noticed that a lot, and I think it does have a lot to do with education and a level of respect. If a man hasn't already learned how to respect a woman or doesn't respect the women in his life, he may not respect the women outside of that. That's just my personal guess from what I've seen of men that I've met who are like that. I generally try to surround myself by men who have really, really positive energies, and once again, there's something that I found here at Occupy where, yes, you have positive energy. We have a bit of a male audience here tonight, giving the support. But I do find that here it's been really nice to actually be able to go up in front of people and stand, being at a GA and seeing women speak, and they're not being treated like that. I feel like that's something we need to figure out, how to make that happen outside of here and outside of our friendships, where in the larger span of the community, that will be something that just becomes the status quo and becomes the standard of interaction. And yes, Chronic Dave, it is the beauty of a woman's soul. It's been another thing we've been noticing around here is despite the fact of no running water and women feeling perhaps a little less put together than they normally are, as an understatement, I'm going to say that. The men here have been very amazing at looking at us for us. We get told all the time that we're beautiful, and whenever they're referring to that beauty, they're not referring necessarily, I don't think, to the way that we look, because sometimes there's a bit of a faint smell after a few days. But they're looking at who we are and our ideas, which is really great. So thank you, Chronic Days, for that comment. I'm still loving your Chronic Days of I laugh at guys who go from lady to lady to bar using the same line till it works. That's like Barney from How I Met Your Mother. The worst man ever, but so hilarious at the same time that I would not want to meet that guy. And yes, I think men do play a huge part in helping other men become re-educated. And that's something that I have seen from friends and from guys here as well is, you know, if they see someone or if a man sees someone that's disrespecting a woman, it's okay to be like, go up to that person and be like, hey, you know what, your treatment of that person isn't okay and that's not cool. I think education is such a huge part in changing these kinds of standards that have been set. As well as women realizing that whenever a guy does that, you don't have to just ignore it and pretend it's not happening. You can go up and say something right back, okay? It will stun them a little bit. They probably won't say very much back. But if enough women correct them and put them in their place whenever they try saying that sort of things, whether it's derogative, sexist, anything like that, just go up and have something to say about it. You know?
It's also like, it's just not some guy's style to be that way. So if they act a certain way, it's like there's always someone who could, and if, you know, sometimes it could be a guy and they turn around and they say, hey man, what's up with that, you know?
Exactly. Guys can do this correction too. If you see a woman is being treated in a negative manner and having negative comments done to her, turn around and say something. Because maybe that woman hasn't found her voice yet and she doesn't know how to react and how to stand up and tell that person that what they're doing is completely disrespectful and wrong. Yeah, Carrie, you as well.
Yeah.
I have to say, dating men who are only over 40, I have to say, I've dated some guys who are younger and I've dated some guys who are older. Age has nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
It really, really doesn't. I've dated some guys who are like, oh, how old are that one, babe? 41 now, who are total sexist douchebags. And then I've dated guys who are 25 who treat women like queens. It's all about how the guy has been raised and his views of women and whether or not he's been educated on respect for other human beings. Not just women, but human beings.
Well, it's a people thing too. It's like, would you treat like your mother this way? Would you treat your sister this way? Like, you'll find that some of the guys who like treat women like badly, they'll treat their mothers the same way too, right? That's kind of like a thing. Sometimes they'll treat their mothers fine, but their girlfriend's like crap. You know what I mean?
So justifiably knows right or wrong from the get-go, though.
Exactly.
There's no justifying treating a woman like crap. Sorry. There's no justifying it.
It's very true. We're gonna put
I'm sorry. I'm the
the
world's
peanut
biggest
gallery. I don't
faggot,
know
and
if
I'm
you
saying
guys.
treat a woman with respect.
Excellent.
No, some women push it. Don't get me wrong. Some women push it.
And so do some men.
Exactly.
Some men push it too. But at the same time, it's a people thing.
It's called gender inequality. A man can do it and get away with it. A girl does. She's considered a tramp, a slut, and a whore. I don't think so. Because you know what? I'm the biggest slut, tramp, whore you've ever met.
So what are some of our other questions here? And yes, Chris Brown, everybody needs to be treated with respect. And
sorry,
sorry, we can't have smoking in the tent.
Okay.
Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, we do need to have respect for all people. I think that's one of the things that the show is. Although the show is geared towards women and women empowerment, I think it's something that men can join in on as well, because there's still things that they can know and learn as well, and still things you can support the women that you care about. Who are some of the women in power that I like? Oh my goodness. It runs the gamut. It runs the gamut throughout history, throughout music, throughout my life. Some of my influences have actually been my mom, who's an extremely strong person. She's been through a lot, and she's never been afraid to speak her mind and stand up for herself. My grandmother as well, a very feisty woman. So I would say those two have been extremely inspirational to me. Naomi Klein is someone who I have a lot of respect for, who I'm hoping actually we're going to get on the show. Maybe we could do this as a shout out to her.
She is awesome.
Can you please come?
I brought her into the tent when she was standing at the gazebo, and just like the moment that I just had with her was just like totally awesome. Like, she is just such an amazing person, and yeah, I think we could get her on the show.
I think so.
And Judy Rebick as well.
Yes. Other women who I love, I adore Margaret Atwood. I've been reading her literature since I was quite young. And she's a wonderful Canadian writer from Toronto, actually, here, who we also hope to get on the show. And
Charlize Theron, she's pretty cool.
I like Helen Mirren. I have great respect for that woman. In the film world, age generally starts to define the kinds of roles that you get, and it's much harder for women who reach a certain age to get work. And in my opinion, she is an extremely excellent actress, and she has done some incredible roles about women who have been extremely powerful throughout history. And I have a lot of respect for her. As well as Helena Bonham Carter, because she is just quirkily, awesomely wonderful and creative and funky, and another woman that speaks her mind. I don't think we can have enough of those, for sure. As well as in fashion, Vivienne Westwood is a wonderful character as well, quite inspirational woman.
Actually, you know who I really like, and probably only the
Jane Goodall.
Jane Goodall.
I love Jane Goodall, okay? I loved monkeys. I was convinced I was going to be the next Jane Goodall as a child, okay?
This woman is a little bit kind of like not maybe the nerds might know her, but on CNET.com there's an anchor whose name is Molly Wood, and she does all the tech stuff. Like, she's in a Men's World for tech stuff, and she is like one of the strongest figures. If you look her up, check out her videos. Like, CNET is actually now CBS, but Molly Wood is awesome. Like, if you ever get a chance to hear, she does tech news and stuff like that. She is just absolutely amazing. I cannot say enough about her. I watch her all the time.
Another person too, speaking of women who are in male-dominated fields, is actually Tina Fey, who's brilliant. I'm a huge fan of her character.
I love 30 Rock.
30 Rock. I actually had a Tina Fey moment the other day. I actually started choking on my own, and I had to do the Heimlich moment myself, which, if anyone got that episode of 30 Rock, that was me. Yeah, also a very wonderful woman. So do we have any other questions too here?
Molly Wood.
Oh my God! Someone actually had a friend that met Jane Goodall at UFT last summer. I'm jealous. Really jealous, actually. Have we met many women at the church who provided the park? I actually haven't met any, although we did have a woman come in who is was she part of the United Ministries? I wasn't sure what church she was
I think it was
from.
Jessie. Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. I don't know where she was from, but she was pretty cool.
Yeah, she was really wonderful. She was from a church. She's a minister, and she'd come down to support the Occupy movement and just be here to experience it and empower people and give any spiritual guidance she could to those who would love liked it, and it was pretty awesome. More. Warn me that Leslie B and I should use my job to fish for women. If I was a woman, I could be allowed to be extended. I'm not quite sure I understand the question. I'm trying to say. What does Occupy see for women and children in the movement? Well, we do have a children's tent actually set up here, which is amazing. It's making it a lot more accessible, especially...
Right behind us.
Yeah, it's actually right here. We got toys and everything like that. And it's great. I have to say, it's kind of nice having kids running around during the day. It's made it a lot easier as well for mothers who want to come to the camp to participate in some of the free classes we have here. They can bring their kids, and they're not going to be bored. So that's been really wonderful. We do want to have that involvement. I think some of the things that I would like to see happen out of the Occupy movement with things moving forward is I think there needs to be more pay equality for women in the workplace as well as more equal rights. Women do not make as much as their male counterparts. It's something that's still lacking deficiency. That needs to be equalized as well as having equal benefits that men have as well as with bonuses, things of that nature. Equal hiring opportunities as well. I've interviewed for jobs before where I was much more qualified than male counterparts and they were given a job because they were a man. And I'm not the only one that's been through that. It's an unfortunate statistic that still remains in our patriarchal society. I think daycare and education is something that needs a lot of focus because we do not have good daycare. Kids are having to what are we doing now?
It's okay, don't worry.
Oh, I'm just going to ignore the thing on the screen. Daycare, I know a number of my friends have children and they basically have to register their kids for daycare before they're even born. As well as midwives, I think, is another issue. Another thing that is unfortunately extremely under budgeted and understaffed. It's another thing where pretty much if you start thinking you're going to become pregnant, you need to make an appointment immediately. And I think that's something that needs to change. I think women need to be able to take a maternity leave without having to worry about job security. And I don't think that women should also be discriminated against in the workplace if they do have children. And I don't think women should be discriminated in the workplace or anywhere else if they choose not to have children. It goes both ways. I think we need to have tolerance for all choices of women.
I like to say my mom is awesome. She was a single mother. She was totally awesome. Just in a she's a fighter. She's always been.
And unfortunately, for anyone asking questions that aren't specifically about the topic today, we are running out of time, so we are not going to be able to answer all of those. We're just going to try to keep it to things that are specific to today's topic before we wrap up. So we've got time for a couple more questions. And yes, I am feminine. Choices for everyone. Women equality for sure. Which is another thing I think in the camp, which is something actually that Sharon, my co-host, will be talking about tomorrow is women's violence against women. Whether that be verbal, emotional. We need to support each other regardless of whether or not we perhaps agree with another person's views. Being a feminazi, as I suppose the term has now become popular to be, is not cool, and that falls under the description of being a woman who isn't really respecting or holding to true feminist thought. It's more where you're almost denying your femininity. These are the things that make us unique and make us special and should be embraced instead of, judged by ourselves. Women are strong. We shouldn't be discrediting ourselves or fighting against each other. Sorry. And yes, whenever you start separating, you do segregate. There's a saying that has been throughout the Occupy movement, which I think applies to women as well. Divided we fall and united we stand. We need to be united with ourselves, and we need to be united with the men in our world as well. And I'm getting a thumbs up from a very lovely lady over here. And yes. And Maud Barlow is very much a supporter of Occupy. Maud Barlow is amazing. I believe we were actually talking about her last night, how awesome it would be to actually get her on the show as well, just in case anyone's watching, they can get in touch with these people. And apparently we can go over time. Do you think it is men's negative views that have made feminism such a negative thing in the media? I think it's a combination. I think there's a lot of different facets as to why feminism as a word has gotten a lot of negative connotations. In my mind, true feminism is owning your power as a woman and having a strong voice. That doesn't mean that you're better than men. It doesn't mean that you're better than other women who, if you're a careerist and you're a go career, that doesn't mean you're better than a stay-at-home mom. It means that you respect everyone around you. You are powerful inside of yourself. You love yourself, thereby being able to love others. And you create the changes that you want to see by using your voice. Unfortunately, feminism has different facets to it that have perhaps gone a little bit away from that deviated path of Gaia, Mother Earth, and matriarchal societies from early times before patriarchal society came in. And unfortunately, we do see now that feminism has grown into something where there is that women infighting of women judging other women if they perhaps choose to wear makeup or wear dresses or like the color pink or listen to, you know, really poppy gay music. That's okay. Sometimes you need to listen to gay music. Or if they like to go out and dance or do different things like that that are typically thought of as being really girly. And I think those women who perhaps go a little bit overboard on trying to disguise and abolish any of their actual femininity, which is their power, are what have created a negative view for men. And that's not to say that not all men have negative views for other reasons as well. Some men just have negative views towards women, and that's misogyny, and that's a completely different topic.
I think what a lot of the guys have to kind of more shoot towards is more the equality and not so much treating women's like special or try to accommodate them. I don't think that's what it's all about.
And I don't think we'd like that.
Like when you a lot of times, like when you work with a woman, you treat her as a colleague and you work together in a certain way, and that's kind of like how a lot of the guys here treat the women. It's like they're very much colleagues, and that is a very positive way to kind of approach it. Like men like appreciate the beauty of women. Like I love women who are good looking, and I don't know any other straight guy who does it. But I mean, there's a special appreciation that men have for women in that regard. But at the same time, when it comes to treatment and stuff, it's like you keep it equal. You know, you keep it very simple.
To be a friendship.
Yeah. So.
Which I've always been very lucky in my life of being surrounded by a lot of great men. And most of my friends are men, aside from some very strong women. And yeah, I think friendship is such an important thing. I suppose in some ways taken for granted that even balance with my friendships that you don't get in the outside world, and then you go away from that situation and you're like, oh right, not like that with everybody.
No.
You know?
Someone said women kick ass. Like, you know, some men have to realize some women can kick your ass.
Damn right.
That's sometimes, yeah.
Through women expressing themselves, men can find commonalities and likewise for men. It's very true. Really, we always are trying to focus on the differences of the sexes, and instead of focusing on so many of the things that we have in common that are similar. Not, like, I don't know. What's a common difference that people sometimes focus on?
A common difference
between men and women aside from anatomy. Logical versus emotional.
Yeah.
Okay, can I just say in this media tent alone, if it's in situations where there are some emergencies and I saw some boys screaming like girls, and I was sitting here calm doing stuff. Not just say all the boys, just you know, it does happen. It's not always, it's right brain, left brain. That's not a male, female thing. Everybody's different. Some women are more emotional than logical. Some people are more balanced. Some men are more emotional than logical. It goes all ways. You know?
We have to say this after the show?
To put it online.
To put it up? Okay.
You can also live. Yeah,
and yes, women do have a very special capacity of love and compassion. But I have to say I've seen that from men too. I can think of a few. Actually, my brother is such an amazing example of that, who I have very great respect for as a man, as well as my grandpa. And many of my friends, some of which are at Occupy. They're good!
Yay.
And there is a stigma that implies men are not as bonded with children, which I think is completely false. And I think that's something too that, you know, women obviously have a different kind of bond, because whenever you carry something inside of you, I think, and I've never had a child, and I actually have made the choice not to, so I don't know if I will ever know the answer to this, but from what I've heard from people is carrying a child, it's something different. You create a different bond with your child, but that doesn't mean that a father isn't just as close to a child in a different way as well. And there are lots of stay-at-home dads out there, and they do a wonderful job, and I think that's great.
There is actually a very special bond between the father and his daughter. Like, it's very unique, and you'll find that it's very powerful. with a lot of, like with my dad and my sisters. It's very much like it's not about me competing with them, but it's like I see that he gives a very special attention to my sisters, and they get that from him too. So that's pretty powerful. It's pretty powerful.
And I just want to address this. We're all conditioned by the system and our specific gender roles, and that is something that we've been very tied to. Women are expected to do certain things, you know. There's the completely misogynistic view of women where we're barefoot in the kitchen cooking for you and cleaning your house, to the 50s version of going around and serving tea in lovely pencil skirts, which is very Mad Men, to today's gender roles where women are expected to, wear nice clothes, maybe some things that are a little bit more figure revealing, and they're supposed to be very delicate and sweet, and, that's not like the typical woman that we see everywhere, and we're not all Barbie.
Women. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, like I've had tons of gender roles that perhaps, we wouldn't necessarily think of a woman as a security guard. I've been a security guard. Different things like that, and I've seen guys who have had jobs that are typically thought of for women. That's just one example of things.
I think in the context of Occupy, I don't think it's really gender. It's just like, if you join the revolution, your work is cut out for you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. Yeah.
Same thing.
Except if you're the 1%. It might be a little different for you.
You might not be doing anything. You might just be doing...
You might be running for the hills.
Well, that too. Yeah.
But there's 1%ers in here too. There's 1%ers in here.
Yeah, there's actually been a lot of support from
the quote unquote.
We've had some quote unquote 1%ers that have come in and have been extremely supportive and involved in the movement. Who say, yes, we have the peanut gallery thing, and they're not the 1%. They're the borderline, perhaps. I think the 1% is pretty much just the people that own the corporations in my mind, because that's kind of more along the numbers of the 1% there.
There are a lot of 99%ers who think they're 1%ers, and then they realize that they're not very quickly.
And someone made the point that even the 1%ers are gender specific. Indeed they are, because whenever you think of a corporation, have you seen a woman holding those kinds of positions that isn't called a bitch? Yeah. Not so much.
So what about in the fashion industry, like Aritzia and Jacob and all those places? Is it women heading those places?
I don't...
No, probably not.
Actually,
probably not.
Fashion industry is extremely male-driven. Women do not... You would think women would have more of a role in fashion. It's considered, something that's very artsy and crafty, but working in the fashion industry for years... it is definitely run by men, and there is a lot of gender stereotype roles for women, and a lot of misogyny, and a lot of unreal specific expectations, which you can look at models, which is why I stopped doing a lot of the work I was doing on photo shoots, is because I was seeing girls coming in who literally didn't have bumps anymore. They just had bones sticking out with a little bit of muscle flapping on the bottom, and they were being told to lose things. And,
Well, Facebook is actually pretty interesting, because I think the second in command is a woman, or the woman who's, I think she's head of
No Men Head the Cosmetics Industry.
No Men Head the Cosmetics Industry. That's true. Well, same with the magazines as well, I would assume.
Yeah.
Think so? You don't think so? But there's a woman who's basically number 2 in Facebook, and she's a very, very interesting person. She's gotten a lot of flack for having such a powerful position, but at the same time, she gives talks about being a mother and always having, she has to deflect a lot of bad sentiments towards her having so much power, and it's Facebook, right? So I'm trying to remember her name, but she actually did give a talk on TED Women, in one of the TED Women conferences, and it was actually a really good talk. And she speaks in a very certain way, and she's very direct about the things. Men do had yes.
Continue.
Okay. Yeah, she's very interesting. I wish someone could get her name. I believe it's Rosenberg.
Maybe we could put it up on the website that I'm going to create this week.
Who's number 2 on Facebook?
Yeah,
it's a woman. She gives lots of talks, and she's very powerful. Very, very powerful.
Yeah. So it turns out, just a clarification, that you know, the men do head the cosmetics industry, which is funny. Apparently they know what lipstick we want. Or if we even want lipstick, which is kind of a pain in the butt in my mind. But I do enjoy wearing it, and that makes me feel pretty.
Wait.
And to actually, one of my friends on here, Billy Rouge, who actually used to work with in the fashion industry, she's actually a model, a very stunning model. She's actually a very beautiful woman. You can actually find her. I don't know if she wants to actually give out her model name on here.
Thank you.
And she was saying that, you know, as a size 6, she's now being told she's a plus-size model. A size 6. She is tiny and beautiful, and she's being told she's plus-size. There's a complete skew in our society. We wonder why we have such a strong presence of anorexia and bulimia and self-esteem issues. Well, if we're being told a size 6 is plus-size, and the plus-size is, you know, got those kinds of connotations to it, then, you know, what kind of world is that? That's a healthy, average, normal size. That's the size of a woman. Curves. Marilyn Monroe was hot. Now we have tiny sticks. They're going to break. You look at them and you think they're going to break. You just want to shove a burger in their mouth.
But it's also like...
not against women that are naturally thin, because there's some of those too. One of my really good friends.
But it's also like throughout history, like Oprah and Kirstie Alley, like when they got big, they got crucified by the media. Like it was like terrible.
Same with Janet Jackson.
Same with Janet Jackson, right? And it seems like people like Rosie O'Donnell, they're already on the bad side of the of the argument here. But yeah, we should. Okay,
so we have a wonderful woman named Josephine Gray who's going to actually join me for a moment. We're kind of going off a little bit of our scheduling normally for the show because of all the technical difficulties. So this is Josephine Gray. She's come to join me today. She's been sitting here listening in on the show tonight. And you've had awesome comments throughout all of it and great support. So was there anything you want to say or any questions you want to answer or talk about?
In relation to the gender issue, I think about the gender issue, from my perspective as an older person, I've watched things change a great deal, and I think the mainstream corporate culture has been doing everything it can to divide men and women. Mm-hmm. I think that dividing men and women is important from many perspectives. One is to ensure that we don't act together in defense of our rights, but it also helps to divide people into individual household units. And the more people are in their own separate units, the more stuff they have to buy. So it's very convenient. And when people break up and they, you know, have split families and all this stuff, it just means more consumption as a result of it. So it strikes me that there are many good reasons to divide men and women, and we are doing a very evolutionary thing when we say we will not be divided as men and women. And as a mother of sons, and lover of men and fatherless, but nonetheless known a lot of really good men in my life. I find it really tragic that so many people of either gender feel it necessary to look at the other gender as the enemy or the other, however you put it. But it did occur to me when I saw all these families breaking up, how much stuff we have to buy.
I know, and women, I think, have become such heavy consumers through the beauty industry, being told that, and I think maybe this is why it's such an attack as well on body image and our appearance, because the more they tell us that we need to buy, and the more they tell us that we don't look right, the way that we are, and the more that men are made to believe to support that as well. Yeah, of course, women are, you know, going to kind of care about that with kind of like men, and it's going to encourage us to buy more stuff so that we feel better about ourselves, and that's terrible.
It's tragic because it basically tells women that you're only of value if you wear certain kinds of clothes or you look a certain kind of way. And this notion of ascribing value or defining what is valuable in a human being is tragic. And then if you look back a little bit or look deeper and see how the accounting system of government is constructed, the actual rules in the accounting system of nations says that the work of women in family and community is little or no value, which is outrageous. Then you see women out in the workforce working in the labor force but also at home. So now feminism has brought us to a place where they've restructured the economy where two people have to work to support a family. So now you've got more people out working, lower wages, which means they don't have a choice to have only one person working. And it drives people apart. It splits families. It's very, very stressful and very unnatural. Everybody's working far too much. And families have no cohesion anymore. So it all works together very nicely. Devalue women, make them feel like they have to buy $4 billion worth of makeup a year.
Silences their voices, because women's voices can be extremely powerful. There's been so many incredible women throughout history who have, just as one woman even, just that one voice has made change in history, whether we're looking at, let's see, Joan of Arc, or we look at Rosa Parks, or we look at
Angela Davis,
yeah. There's so many women who have created such change. So in a way, it's putting a bit of a silence. Now, how have you seen things for women here at Occupy?
I think it's challenging. I mean, I think a lot of men here believe in equality and respecting women. There are also a lot of characters around the park who have a lot of struggles with themselves, and I think it comes out inappropriately towards women at times. I think it was a bit slow in coming up with procedures to ensure women's safety. It's a bit concerning to me. I'm not so sure that were I still raising these small children, I would have felt so welcome until very recently to bring them. But I think all in all, it's really important that women are coming together. I think it's been a tragedy that I've observed in my life is not only men and women being driven apart by this corporate culture, but also women being driven apart from each other, judging each other for the way they look, judging each other for the way they behave, and to see women just refusing to fall into that trap and to hang together and to decide that a women's council is a good thing. I think it's really important that there are certain differences, and we are more vulnerable in some ways, and for women to have their own council so that we can discuss issues in a safe space. I think it's very valuable. Not all women are as courageous and outspoken in a mixed gender context as others. So I think a women's space is really crucial. I would have to add, though, that I think the same thing goes for people of color, that people of color have a different relationship to corporate rule than people who don't experience multiple oppressions, multiple discrimination. And it's not to divide the movement, to say that people who have a specific particular relationship to history or to corporate rule may need to have their own space to figure out where they fit in it and how they should express their issues within the broader whole. I think it's important to include that just as it is with women.
Well, and I think the thing with the color as well is there's so many issues that are still today where there's still prolific racism, whether you're mixed race and you don't look enough like mom or dad.
Been there.
Or there's so many things in our society that still just haven't changed enough with that need to be changed, and that's something that I think unless you've gone through it, you might not notice a lot of those things in society that are still happening that need change, and that needs to be done by the group of people that can bring awareness to those issues and get everyone involved and on board with it.
Exactly. I mean, I realize the movement can't address everything, but I think what from my perspective, I see sort of two tracks of action here. One is to try and model a different way of being together, of living, of being outside the system, which I think is crucial to show that we can form community. We don't have to be competitive. We can be cooperative. We can support each other. We can be a very diverse group of people who are able to cohabit in space and collaborate. The other side of it, of course, is looking towards the issues that we want changed and trying to come up with actions and demands to push for those changes. And those two things are very important together, and it's one of the reasons why I'm very happy about this movement, because I've always felt that those two things need to be together, that we can't all just go home and continue to be part of the matrix, that at some point we have to be able to move away from it. And I think that a lot of people here are learning about that. learning how, in some ways I've done this in my life. I don't use credit cards. I don't go to groceries. I don't go to department stores. I have found ways to live as far outside of the corporate matrix as I can, and I'm very happy to see a lot of people do that. At the same time, I think we do need some pretty powerful messages so that those who are on the outside are trying to figure out whether to support it or not can get a sense of resonance with it. And having been involved in these kinds of movements for over 30 years, I've seen a lot of different ideas and demands put forward, and I hope some of them are picked up. Because some of them were crafted by people, for example, from all over the Americas, north and south. We spent, months and months and months coming up with exactly the right kind of formula for what it was we wanted government to do to address some of the issues of corporate greed and corporate rule. And I think some of those things are still valid. And the other thing I think it's really lacking is an understanding in the younger generation, and it's by no means anyone's fault. This is very intentional. Again, corporate media culture is very effective. But we need to know that the movements of people who are against corporate rule and corporate greed have had some major successes in the past. We managed to beat back the free trade era of the Americas. We managed to prevent them from going forward with the multilateral investment agreement. We managed to push back the power of the WTO, the World Trade Organization. So a lot of things have happened, and in fact, a lot of countries in South America were able to break away from the whole trade regime that North America was trying to impose, in part because of the movements that involved people all across the Americas. So the demonstrations and protests in Seattle, Quebec, Washington, Windsor, all those places, they had effect, they had serious impact. But of course the corporate media is not going to see that. Of course not. But I want young people here to realize that, there's a lot of people who've been at it, and we've had some successes. Everything kind of got really chilled after 9/11. And after Quebec, it turned a lot of people to go a little more under the radar. And sort of pull back. But waiting for another time when there's enough critical mass, and I think we're reaching that. And what's really exciting to me is that with new technology, with the ability to communicate, we now see us connecting across different cities, across different countries, in the same kind of direction, the same kind of trajectory. And I've always waited for that. But I do hope that at some point a couple of common demands come from that, and like taxing the financial sector, reforming corporate law, insisting that all governments respect human rights, insisting that all governments respect the environment. These are some pretty basic things that I think we can all agree on. Free education, this kind of stuff we can all agree on. And then, where we can take different actions in different countries. Like, it would be wonderful if students in North America would say, we're not paying the student debts, we shouldn't owe them in the first place, so we're going to sue government for putting us in the hall. It shouldn't be like that, because it's actually a violation of young people's human rights to be charging them so much for education as they're letting them debt. It's a complete violation. The United Nations recognizes that.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up the View from Women's show, but maybe, because this stuff is, awesomely incredible. You're, so informative on all this stuff, but I just love that there's, another woman here to, talk about this sort of thing. Shager, who's on live stream next?
You can go as long as you want. Keep going.
Do you want to, after I wrap up the show, do you want to talk?
I'm good. I'm going to do the show and I get it.
Oh, okay. Well, I just want to...
And then we hijacked
my books. Well, thank you again to Josephine for coming on to the live stream tonight to chat a little bit. Thank you so much. I hope to see you again soon.
I'll be here at the women's meeting.
Okay.
Thanks.
Awesome. And what time is the women's meeting tomorrow?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock? All right. And the women's meeting tomorrow is at 9 o'clock as well, same time as the View from Occupy. So, if you are going to be in the camp and you're going to miss our show, the View from Occupy, you can go and see it, women's council meeting in the women's church, which is down by the food tent in the southeast corner of St. James Square. So tomorrow night is Sharon, my lovely co-host. She'll be talking to you about women-on-women violence, which I know we touched on a little bit this evening. And she's going to be talking with an interview about that subject. So tune in tomorrow night at 9 p.m. with Sharon for The View from Occupy. My name is Anna, and thanks for joining me tonight.
And don't forget, we have a podcast of last night's first show on our YouTube.